Welcome to part 4 of the Shea Yarn Crochet Along to make a stitch sampler cardigan like this one. In the last part, we made the front panels and attached them to the back panels. If you missed any of the previous parts, you can check them out up here. And in part 4, we will be making these sleeves and attaching them to the cardigan so we have our base cardigan all done. So our next step would be to work on the sleeves, but before I work on sleeves, with a piece like this, I like to sew the body pieces together so I have an idea of my end goal with my sleeve holes. Before you sew it all together, I highly recommend that you weave all of your ends in. It's going to make sewing it up so much easier when you're not fighting with all of your ends. And then at this point, you will have woven in the majority of your ends, and it's going to feel really good, I promise. Before I sew these up, I'm going to pin and fit it just to make sure I don't need to add any more rows anywhere. But I want to point out before I put this on that, as you can see, these do not line up perfectly, and I am totally okay with that. I promise it's all going to come out in the wash. You're not even going to know or care if your pieces don't match up perfectly with a piece like this. I promise. Okay, so I have pinned it, and these are the things I'm taking into account before I sew it up. I'm making sure that it is the length that I want, that it goes down as far as I want. Because once again, we still have time. We could add more rows to the shoulders and add an inch or two to length if you need to. I'm taking into account the size of the armholes. I personally do not like when sweaters and things are really tight up under my arms. That drives me crazy. And I want to make a piece that I want to wear. So I'm taking into account of that. That feels fine. And just in general, checking the fit around the waist. It's bigger like I wanted. Yeah, I'm really happy with the way this has come out so far. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some white yarn and I'm going to sew up the shoulders and the sides where I've pinned it so we can begin our sleeves. So like I said, I'm using white yarn because it's my neutral yarn of this, because I also used it for the cuffs. So I tied this on and then I left a nice long tail so I can weave it in. And I'm just doing a quick blanket stitch over this. You can really use any stitch that you're comfortable with. Just make sure they are small, even stitches, because obviously this is going to get, it's a wearable object. It's going to get pulled on, it's going to get tugged on, it's probably going to go in the washing machine. So you want to have small, secure stitches. So now I have this all sewn together along all the seams that I had pinned. So now that I have this done, it's time to move on to our sleeves. And now for the sleeves, I want a big kind of a bell sleeve. And there's going to be no increases or decreases as we go up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bunch of stitches into this first foundation row here. I'm talking about putting 2 into every single spot. And I'm going to aim for a total of 55 stitches here. Again, I want this a nice big piece. So I got to my goal of 55 stitches, and now I'm just going to continue this up using my stitch randomizer, just the way that I was with the body of my cardigan. And what I'm going to be aiming for here is to get to this part. So basically the part where I want to start working on the shoulders. So I'm going to go up, up, giving myself plenty of wiggle room here until I get to the part where I'm going to decrease my shoulders. And I'll show you when I get to that part. It will make sense. So here's a little check-in on the sleeve, and my apologies for the bad lighting. It's just kind of a bad lighting kind of day. It's kind of an overcast day. So yeah, you just work it straight up, no increases, no decreases, using the same randomizer pattern. And I'm going to be working it up. So this is my other sleeve that I've already worked up to the point where I want the shoulder to go. And I'm going to get these to the same point of the shoulder decreases, and then I'll probably do the shoulder decreases at the same time. I just think it'll be easier for me to do them similarly that way. And you can see, I'm wearing another cardigan, so this isn't the best example, but you can see I worked this all the way up with plenty of room for elbow movement and, you know, sleeves not riding up until I got to the point where it kind of hits the armpit area. And once I get to my other sleeve to this point, what we're going to be doing is working this inward so it goes kind of along this line here. So once I get these sleeves to the same point, I will check back in with you. So I have my 2 sleeves worked out to the same length, and now I'm gonna start doing decreases on either side so we get like a half a moon kind of shape. And how I do those decreases is going to depend on the stitch that I get. So this is my sleeve after I've worked the shoulder up. So this was my last line before I started the shoulder, and I just did decreases as I went along. Some rows I did, some rows I didn't, but you can see a lot of them I just ended up starting the row with like a 2 or 3 single crochet decrease, and then I would go into my stitch from there. So my last row ended up being 2 half double crochets, so it's a little sharper on the top than my last row would usually be, but this will all fold in and sew in fine. In case you're wondering, the width of the sleeves are around 14 inches. The length up into the decrease is around 19 inches. And the shoulder from here up until here is around 6 inches. Of course, it's going to be different for yours depending on how you want it to fit you. Before I weave in these ends, I'm gonna pin this and pin it onto the body of the cardigan because I want to check the fit before I do work that's hard to undo. So let's do that. Okay, first, the fringe on the arms is kind of amazing. So if you wanted to run with this, I would not blame you. But more importantly, so I pinned this all the way up here. This is the piece is inside out right now, so I pinned it just so I can try it on and make sure that I like the fit of it before I sew it. And then I've pinned it, again, this is all inside out, but I pinned it the edge of the arm all around the shoulder. And this is how I will be sewing it on after I weave in the ends. So here, obviously, the shoulder looks a little bit of a mess because it's just pinned, but this is how it will fit when it's sewn on. I wanted to make sure that there was a lot of length in the sleeve, so I had plenty of room for like bending my arm and it's not gonna pull up at all. Again, this is how I like my sleeves to fit. So I'm gonna do the other sleeve in this manner by working the shoulder up and then weaving in the ends, pinning and sewing it, and I will check with you guys after I've done all of that. Okay, so we wove in our ends, we sewed in our sleeves, and now we have a like base cardigan. And you can kind of, here's what you can do. You can finish it up here by doing a piece of trim all along your inner edge here, or I am going to add a hood to mine. This is going to be an optional hood element. So look for that video coming soon. It might take an extra week to get that done just because I actually need to like design the hood. So part 5 will be how to do the hood, and then we will have our final part, which is part 6, where we will chat doing any trimming, adding in pockets, and any other questions that people had along the way. So stay tuned for that.